For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of July 29th, 2024. Today, I'm joined by our DC correspondent, Danielle Battaglia. It's July 29th. Gosh, this has been the July that I don't think any of us expected. We thought maybe not. July 1st feels like a year ago. I don't even remember what happened then. Danielle, you were at RNC like a year ago, but it was actually
like a year ago.
Yeah, like a week or two ago. For those of us that listen to WUNC NPR, you may have heard Danielle and I on Jeff Tiberi's show on Friday, Due South, talking about, of course, like the weekly roundup. But Danielle made a really good point that I want to launch our discussion that you're listening to this on Monday, that remember the Donald Trump, somebody tried to assassinate him. That, was also this month. And how that led into RNC and there being this vibe of unity, at least in theory. And then Trump comes down to Charlotte and says, yeah, I'm not going to be nice anymore. So are we already back to the before July times for this presidential race, Danielle?
Well, let me clarify that you're laughing not at the attempted assassination, but just how much has been packed into 1 month. But yeah, so I mean, RNC immediately, shooting happened Saturday. Everyone travels Saturday to Sunday to come to RNC. We're hearing nothing but messages of unity, that this has changed former President Donald Trump, that he feels like the country needs to be unified, and that it's kind of awakened a new message for Republicans, but the nation as a whole, about how we need to stop attacking one another, how we need to come together. This is a new era in politics. And then we get to, I don't even remember what day it was. Was it yesterday that former President Donald Trump, yesterday when we're recording, but I believe that was Thursday, former President Donald Trump was in North Carolina, in Charlotte. And he very quickly opened his speech with people are saying that the shooting made me softer, but I'm going to be full of hate in this speech. And I thought, we already saw the unity message kind of going away at the end of RNC, but that just knocked it right out.
What are some of, you were there the whole week with, a variety of Republicans, including a lot of North Carolinians that are, the national stage from Republican nominee for governor. There's still a governor's race going on here in North Carolina. Right. Mark Robinson, who gave a speech at the beginning of the convention. And then, of course, Michael Whatley, Laura Trump, so many people that are connected to North Carolina with the National Republican Party now. But just like all the delegates, everybody else is there. What do you think from RNC, even with this crazy July that we've had, is going to stick around through August, through September, as far as maybe what the priorities are of Republican voters, which, is, of course, different than the people that would actually go to the convention?
Yeah, I think a couple different things happened. I mean, obviously, the shooting took center stage, and everyone was focused on that. And I don't think that's going to disappear. I think that's going to be in the national spotlight for the rest of the campaign season. And then the other thing that was supposed to be very important to this particular convention was that every convention, they create a party platform, and it's supposed to be the outline of where Republicans are going to go, or Democrats on their convention too, where they're going to go in the future with different policy topics. And we saw this particular platform go from a 66-page platform to a 16-page platform, very much centered around former President Donald Trump and his beliefs and ideas, and very narrowly tailored. Basically, the idea was that if they have a smaller policy platform, Democrats can't use it as a weapon against them. And so I feel like we know less about what Republicans are thinking going into the next, campaign cycle is not the right word, but next, session of Congress, session of legislatures, and what they're going to do, and just know that it's rhetoric that we've heard from Trump and his beliefs. And so we just don't have those guidelines that we normally have to say this is where the party's headed.
Of course, the other big news on the Democratic side with North Carolina is that Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is on the list of people that Kamala Harris is looking at potentially as a running mate. And Cooper did his first Harris campaign event since Biden got out of the race, which has only been barely a week. And he talked about in his speech here in downtown Raleigh, he talked about Project 2025. That seems to be something that Democrats are using a lot. How much of Project 2025 is really going to be what Republicans are talking about, or definitely going to follow? Some of it, half of it, all of it, none of it?
So it's interesting because we specifically asked Senator Tom Tillis this question at RNC. He was originally not supposed to come to RNC, and after the shooting decided to show up. And he takes this as a Democratic attack on the party and says this is not something that they're following. Basically, it's just a soundbite to get attention. It's supposed to freak people out about the election. And so basically, they're saying it's like a non-starter conversation. Whether that's true or not, people have various thoughts on. We've already seen some of Project 2025 getting underway, and so people aren't really buying that thread, but that is what we heard from the senator.
What do you think with J.D. Vance? How has he really kind of changed the Republican race?
I mean, he is so young. He's like 3 years older than me. I believe he's 39. And he's just a different kind of politician. He's not been, I think he's had 18 months in office. He was an author before that. His background isn't really in politics, so he's kind of interesting. He doesn't have a lot that you can go on his political background. So he's very interesting as a pick, and just so young as a candidate, but also, people are begging for younger candidates. So that could be refreshing to some. But I also know that Governor Cooper had a statement to you, I think, about J.D. Vance and his thoughts on him. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was really funny. So like I was saying, so Cooper has this Harris campaign event and then doesn't want to take any questions about being, potentially Harris's VP. So we're all like, come on, this is, you invited us here to talk about Harris. That's what we're asking about. And he said Vance was Trump's, he said sort of a mini me, which I actually think is a reference to the Austin Powers movie, but maybe people don't even watch this. I'm sure Cooper
I didn't pick up on that, but that makes sense.
that was my thought. But also, I mean, I guess the phrase in general, people will understand. So yeah, so he's got some choice words about Vance, and then of course about Trump, and a lot of what he said, both in answering his questions from reporters and then his speech before then at that presser, was kind of a lot of the same thing you would hear Cooper talking about at Biden-Harris campaign events, which are now just Harris campaign events. But when she has been here by herself too, of course, Cooper talked before then. So I wanted two more things. We're going to take a break in a minute, but I wanted to see about, I think, by this point, like we're a week into Cooper's name being on the list, we know a lot about him and, of course, why people are interested in North Carolina. What do you think are the factors at play with the other candidates potential that Harris is looking at? Mark Kelly obviously is an astronaut, that's not common. But do you think it's a lot of personality versus what they might deliver as a state? Is it galvanizing voters across the country? What do you think is going into her decision process?
I think there's some strategy in if the people that she's looking at can deliver Democrats in certain states and how that matches up to what they need to deliver Harris for the entire country. I think there's some level of, can I trust this person? Do I have a relationship with them? One thing that I like about Governor Cooper is he's really allowing her to get out and shine and be, Vice President Harris, the presidential candidate, and not making it about himself. And I'm wondering if that plays into her decision making. Mark Kelly is great. He is an astronaut. Who doesn't love astronauts? We grew up in a generation that does. He does have little experience as a politician, but his wife has, intense experience as a politician. And so that can play into it as well. There's so many different factors with each of these candidates that all she's got to weigh out all of these and how it helps her campaign and winning the Democratic ticket the most.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a candidate for Congress who kind of went, had differing comments about Kamala Harris this week. That would be Don Davis, the former state senator. We'll be right back.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with DC correspondent Danielle Battaglia. As we mentioned before the break, Congressmember Don Davis was pro and not as pro Harris this past week. So what's going on? And of course he's running for re-election. What's going on with Congressman Davis?
So Republicans immediately decided to attack Kamala Harris on her immigration policies. She was picked to basically by President Biden to figure out what's going on with migrant issues at the border and working with Central American countries on trying to solve the problems there and basically get immigration issues under control. And they are attacking her for basically not going there quick enough to the border, not meeting with the right immigration officials, not getting the numbers down for people crossing the border without permission. And so they immediately after she announced that she's running for president, Republicans put in a bill or a resolution basically saying she's a border czar, she's not doing a good job. We denounce this. And Don Davis was one of 6 Democrats who voted with the entirety of the Republicans in the House to pass this resolution and say that they are not happy with her job on immigration. And so you could say it was surprising because he is a Democrat and all the other Democrats went the other direction, but he is in a very difficult district to win. It's slightly red, maybe sort of blue. It could go either direction. And so it's one of those things where you're looking at politics and policy and what's best for him to win this election. He says he doesn't like what he's seen at the border, and that's why he made that decision. But then this morning, something happened because all of a sudden after, I was going to say weeks, but it's not even been a full week, after a week of,
and this is Friday. We're recording this on Friday.
Oh, yeah, sorry. On Friday, he comes out and says that he is now endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris for president and Governor Cooper as vice president. And that was something we haven't heard from him. He was the last of our delegation to not come out and support her on the Democratic side. And so kind of surprising to suddenly hear this after making that vote.
Mm-hmm. So with DNC coming up in, I guess, mid to late August.
It's mid-August. Yeah.
Obviously, the VP pick, will factor in. But what do you think it's going to be like now that it's Harris and not Biden? What do you think is going to change?
I think already we're seeing a more energized Democratic Party. I think, some of her youthfulness is coming out that we weren't seeing. I think some people were fed up with the Biden versus Trump matchup. I think it was a repeat of 2020. So I think to get a new candidate, a fresh candidate has kind of re-energized people in general, but definitely the Democratic Party, and kind of put a competition back in place where I think people were just kind of stagnant on this election prior to Biden dropping out of the race. And so I think we're going to see some of that energy in DNC. They're supposed to take a vote prior to the convention happening on their nominees. And so that's going to take some of that factor away of the surprise of who's actually our nominee. But I think, again, we'll see the party platform. We'll see if it's Harris, her accept the nomination in the speech that's always given on that Thursday night, and lots of speeches from Democrats. So I think the pomp and circumstances will be there, but some things will be taken away.
And then what do you think about like the non-political world? What are they going to get out of it? Probably the snippets of the speeches, that sort of thing. Any big things that happen?
You'll get the snippets for sure. It's interesting just to watch what people cared about with RNC and see, like, certain things resonated with people, certain things did not resonate with people. We found that national stories for our audience weren't doing as well as just the local state stories. So very interesting to see what people wanted to see. But I think people are really hungry to know how, what's going on at DNC affects them and their personal lives. So whether that's like North Carolina audiences or South Carolina or, our readers in Washington or Idaho, because we do have papers there if y'all are listening to us randomly. So it's very interesting. And I think just people want to know how this impacts them on a personal level.
I think that one of the best speakers at RNC or most interesting was the Teamsters guy. And because his speech was, I don't know, it could have been at either RNC or DNC. I joked to a Democrat.
Have said.
Yeah, I said, well, you should just have him at DNC too and give the same speech, and everybody can be mad at him for that. But all right, well, let me get to a little bit of legislative news for our NCGA listeners. House members who are back in Raleigh this week. We don't know if it'll be a day or 2 days, but House Speaker Tim Moore, who's running for Congress and was at RNC, is and actually at Trump's speech this past week in Charlotte. Moore said they're going to hold a couple of these veto overrides. Nothing crazy controversial, but of course they're overturning Democratic Governor Roy Cooper's veto stamp. And the Senate is not coming. It's just the House, so it could be in and out in a day, or who knows how it is. But that's what's going on in the legislature. The other thing that if lawmakers are listening or staff that are driving to Raleigh, you'll see a lot more work on the construction site for the education campus. Department of Administration building is still there. It hasn't been torn down, at least as of Friday afternoon. But they are doing rock blasting on the site. So basically what was that surface parking lot behind DOA twice a day, there are a lot of explosions going on. And there's 2 little boxes around the block across the street with microphones that some folks have noticed. My guess is it's something about monitoring the sound level. So anyway, that's the legislative update for your Monday morning, if that's when you listen to Under the Dome. Let's move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. Danielle, you go first because yours is also about legislating, although at a different level of government.
Well, first, I hope they find artifacts while they're blasting. And I don't remember what my pick was for Headliner of the Week. Remind me, Dawn.
It was about the U.S. House.
That's right. The U.S. House has gone on vacation and will not be back till mid-September. So I think they're taking 6 weeks off. They always take August off. They're doing an extended vacation. But they come back and they have to pass their 12 appropriations bills. And if you remember last year how well that went, we lost House Speaker McCarthy during that. The government had to shut down, the House had to shut down temporarily while they replaced the House Speaker and Patrick McHenry became king for a little bit. So we're hoping for a better run at this, but they're under a very small time frame to pass these because after their 6 weeks off, they have a couple weeks back and then they go off to lead up to the election. So it'll be great.
So they actually have to govern, not just campaign and politics. I remember in a high school government field trip I had, I'm from Fairfax County in Northern Virginia. We went and learned about Congress, and I'm like, they were saying like, oh, every 2 years, like you spend a lot of it campaigning. And I'm like, when do you actually work?
It is true.
All right. My pick for Headliner is the Olympics. So
Olympics.
So as we record this Friday afternoon, I'm sure there's some news by the time you're listening on Monday, but hope everyone's safe. There's no crazy drama, and it's just fun competition with all the athletes from around the world. So I'll be checking that out. It's a nice, fresh air away from politics world. So. All right, we are out of time. I'm Dawn Vaughan for Danielle Battaglia and everyone here at the Ed&O. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.